So when you're composting and feeding your wormery, or just building a nice big productive alive compost pile that is full of great nutrients and beneficial microbes and organisms and building the soil, building a living web, you need to be feeding it. So whether you're feeding your garden, where you're doing a no-dig garden, or you're making compost to start building your no-dig garden, or you're into large scale, more like me, and building big food forests and lots of fruit trees and things, you need something to feed your plants with. Now, unless you've got lots of chickens and a whole big composting area, you're going to need to get compost in large volume and feed it. And so, look, there's a few ways of doing that. You can get carbon, such as a natural wood chip blend, which would come from all the local trees from the arborist, throw chicken manure into it and break it down, because the carbon will be broken down by a heavy nitrogen cycle. Then you can find all the other types of additives that you want to add to it later, maybe some cow manure, some horse manure, things like that, and then keep composting in the process, so you're breaking down any weed seeds or any nasty pathogens and things like that, and building up your microbiology. Now, I've got in the back here a load of composted chicken manure, and this goes into my compost blends that I sell at home here from the front yard. And this is only a part of my blend, and this provides the potash element, so to help with the flowering, and also some nitrogen and different things, but this really helps with optimum growth mixed with an aged mushroom that I've got here on site. So I've got to empty off half a cube. I then blend it into my system and breed up more worms and get all the worms through it and get all the microbes through it. I'm seeing fungi pop up and stuff like that. And then I'm bagging it to sell, and also out onto the garden here, where I'm getting great success into our 3rd year here at Marty's Garden. So you're just growing leafy greens. You don't need to go into the extreme of getting a huge amount of elements. You really just need good nitrogen. You know, obviously a balanced fertilizer or a balanced compost will get you better results, but you don't have to worry about so much about increasing potash and things like that, you know, which you can buy from the local shops and stuff. And you can get actually a mix of potash and blood and bone together, professional mixes, which do a really, really good job. But what you're doing then is basically, yeah, you're feeding the soil in a way, but it breaks down very quick and it leaves the soil quickly, and so you'll get a season out of it. So the old organic farmers teach it like that because it was cheap and readily available, and it's getting more and more expensive all the time now, all these products. And I'm able to keep my product down to about $15 a 30 litre bag, and that helps just cover costs here at Marty's Garden for me to grow more food at home. And look, we've got chickens and stuff like that too, so we've got a lot of food growing on here, and we give a lot of food away to friends, and a lot of the time we can't eat it all, but we're saving seed and all that really cool stuff. So you're probably wondering, why am I throwing this all just to one end and not mixing it through while I'm doing it? Well, what I want to do is I want to let it sit longer. I want it to age, I want it to mature, I want it to get some rain into it. I want to let some like local fungi and different things drift into it, lay their spores into it, stuff like that, get some worms through it, and really start making it bioactive. You can look at the back here, you can see I've got some black bins. They're covered at the moment with this blue shade cloth, and I cover them with the shade cloth, this whole material, to stop any weed seeds and leaves and things dropping in when it's windy, such as it's doing right now. And I'm breeding the compost worms at the back in these large compost bins that are open at the base and at the top, so they can crawl in and out and move in through the system when it's raining, drop their cocoons, drop their beneficial castings, and provide a compost that is superior to anywhere else that you can get around the area, because you know that once the worms are moving through it, it's alive, because they're eating the biology on the outside of what's breaking down. So they're eating the microbes that are breaking down the material in there, which means that it's really alive, full of microbes, because they won't go in there if there's nothing to eat. Anyway, let's have a look in one of the bins and I'll show you what the material looks like after around about, I think it's been sitting there for around about 2 months now. So yeah, we'll go and check it out. Now I've had the lid off this and it's not covered with any shade cloth at the moment because I pulled it off so we could start filling up this area full of the chicken manure and carbon, because I'm making this compost blend. This is the next pile ready to go. And we've had a lot of rain, so the worms have been moving through it and being quite active. So if I dig through here, I haven't had a look through here for a while, but you can see that material, how beautiful and rich it is. And this is just basically my finished compost going into these things, and also some of the sifted material. And look, there's a little worm straight away, little baby one, getting ready to be active in here. Now around the outside in the corners, they hang up against the plastic more to stay nice and moist, but I reckon they've dug down a little bit. Now look at that material. Look how beautiful, light and fluffy that is. That just grows plants like absolutely crazy, guys, like absolutely crazy. And there's another nice big worm there. They'll be somewhere in here in this farm, all congregated together breeding, I would say. But I really wanted to show you what the material looks like in here while we sort of have a dig around through and just have a look. Some real big ones in here that I've been noticing. They were up with the rain, and so you can see one, there's a bigger one here, it's a night crawler. And they have a long wispy tail. That's only, look, I've got them 3 times the size of that. Be interesting if I can find them. Sometimes they dig down really deep to get down deeper and move up and down through this profile in here. And so here's some here. Here we go. That one's a bit bigger. Nice big night crawler. And again, I do get them even bigger than this one. You can see he's nearly as long as my hand there, my top finger. And he's a bit cold, so not as active as what they normally are because it's just been cold through the night. But have a look at that material. Wow, you just don't get any better than that, man. I'm telling you, not really. People just don't put the effort in to really take their compost to the next level, and you can do the same. You don't need a big space like me. You can just have one of these connected up with like a little pile here on the side, and just make sure it doesn't get too hot because you'll kill your worms if the compost is breaking down too much. There's more of a finished compost goes in there, then you feed the top with something that they like to eat, such as some chicken manure and a little bit of sifted mushroom and stuff, and they like that, and throwing in a banana or something every now and again. So a little bit of this will be thrown on top of those large worm farms, and also into my pile. As I said, there's half a metre here, and the worms, they'll eat this stuff if you put it on top, and they'll just consume it into a really beautiful casting. That, you know, chicken manure, I believe, is probably the best casting that there is, in my opinion. Other people would have their own opinions on that, and that's okay. But for me, because it just holds so many variations of nutrients, and the chicken manure is quite strong, so it burns roots and things like that. So once you get it aged a bit and it passes through the worm's gut, whether it be an earthworm or a compost worm, it then also turns it to pH neutral and becomes just a really, really great nutrient, because it doesn't burn any roots, and it's got biology all stuck around it, because the worm cast actually shrinks and expands with the weather and when it's raining and things. And what it does is every time it's shrinking and expanding, it's allowing some nutrients to be released as in a slow release form. And look, I don't think you can really get better than that. Unfortunately, it's pretty expensive, worm castings, to buy on its own. So what I recommend that you do is you just compost and then add your compost worms to it, get it out of your worm farm, and just add a little bit to it all the time, and keep your little plastic worm farms going, and use them as you're getting more worms than you need. Release them into your compost, and they'll move through your compost system. It might take you a couple of goes to get used to it, and you know, but if you keep your plastic worm farms going, like I've been teaching on the channel, if you haven't seen the videos, just go through them and check them out. You will find that you can always keep feeding your plastic worm farms, your tiered worm farms, and then just putting it into the compost area, and you end up really with a superior compost. But it just takes a little bit of patience. And in this world at the moment, as you know, people don't have as much patience like my videos. They only get watched around about 30%, 40% if I'm lucky. So hopefully you've made it all this way through to the end of the video. You've given us a thumbs up, and you've possibly subscribed here to my channel at Marty's Garden on YouTube. It's a great space here, and it's just, I believe I offer something different for you all to learn, and hopefully you've picked up some good tips and tricks for that. I'll just follow it off at the end. Make sure you have some carbon, make sure you have some good nitrogen, make sure you have some, you know, a mixed range of compost stuff that you're using, and just take your time with it and allow your compost worms to move through it, and you end up with a high quality, superior compost that, in my opinion, just can't be beaten. And I know there's plenty of you doing it, because you're watching the channel and you've learned a lot along the way, and you let me know in the comments box down below. Anyway, you have a great day. Happy gardening. We'll see you at the next video next time. Bye for now.